Hello, Internet. So, the day came. Yep, this is no longer week whatever. Yeah, this is the end. This is the epilogue, the final chapter, at least for this playlist. So my wife gave birth earlier this week, which explains why this video is not on Saturday like I said it would be. But, I figured I gotta end it, we're there, so here's a good final video. So, earlier this week, things were kind of going okay. My wife was definitely starting to feel those cramps, starting to feel that pain. It was a little bit unbearable for her at times. Definitely just really felt cramped, felt those contractions. And they were starting to feel much stronger than the Braxton Higgs. But, they weren't anywhere yet pointing towards labor. And Wednesday was her doctor's appointment. Before that day, she hadn't even dilated. She went to the doctor's office. And they said, oh, you've dilated about 2.5 centimeters. So you've started a little bit, but you might still have a ways to go. Of course, my wife was starting to really feel the pain, and so talked to the doctor, and we scheduled an induction for Sunday, today. And thought we would leave it at that. I mean, like doctors usually say, as is common knowledge, usually the first child is born slightly after the due date, so we didn't think too much of it. But as we've seen in this pregnancy before, the child of ours just decides to break all the norms when it comes to advice and standards and whatnot. And so Wednesday afternoon is when the doctor said she was at 2.5. Thursday, I get home from work. I got home slightly early, fortunately, because I got home right about 4 o'clock. Right as I got home, my wife is starting to feel these rather intense contractions. And I start timing them because the doctor said that we need to wait until the contractions are about 5 to 7 minutes apart for an hour before we go to the hospital. And I got home, started timing it, and that hour passed. And so, we were like, okay, that's kind of crazy. The doctor just barely said she's dilating, and we're already off to the hospital. So we get to the hospital through rush hour traffic. Oh boy, I've never been so nervous about traffic. Pull onto the freeway, there's a bunch of cars like at a near standstill, and I feel so bad. I'm just sitting there in the front, and my wife's in pain, and I'm just like, I've never been so frustrated with rush hour. Like, come on, people, my wife's having a baby. Can everyone just cooperate and move in the same direction for once? Anyway, long story short, we get through rush hour. It wasn't too bad. We chose a hospital that was relatively close. And we get into the hospital, do the normal check-in. They ask us a few questions like, oh, so when did you start dilating? You here for contractions, all that stuff. And they get her into triage just to do some checkup and to see how far along she's dilated. And they measure and they look at us and said, where did you say she was at on Wednesday? We said 2.5. They're like, oh, because she's at 8 centimeters now. And we're like, oh, what? Can you explain? It just happened. So, yeah, they look at this like, oh yeah, she's at 8 centimeters. They look at my wife and they ask, do you want the epidural? And of course my wife says, well, yes, if I could please. And they're like, okay, get this girl a room now because she's about ready to give birth. It's now or never for the epidural. And so they rushed her off to go get the epidural. I must say I'm happy that we made it in time for the epidural, because there was someone in the room next to us that was giving birth as well. I mean, normally the walls are thick, but we could just hear some intense screaming. And apparently she didn't get the epidural. My wife was hearing that. She was like, I'm so glad I chose the epidural. Because my wife was thinking maybe she would like to just, go natural, just to experience it as nature intended it. And when the contractions kicked in and when she heard someone else screaming bloody murder, she was like, epidural, all the time, every time. Anyway, so Contractions have started at 4. We were checked in the hospital at 6, and baby's just starting to come out. The nurse is having my wife do some practice pushes, and baby's coming along really fast. So fast that when she goes to call the doctor doesn't realize just how fast the baby's coming. When after the doctor checked in with us, like, okay, you're doing pretty good. You'll probably have the baby later tonight, if not early in the morning. And at 9 o'clock, we're calling like, hey, the baby's like almost here. Could you get over here now? And so he quickly, after about half an hour of waiting, my poor wife, she had to like hold back the urge to push for half an hour. Oh, and it was intense. I could see it on her face. I felt really bad for her, but I mean, we had to wait for the doctor. The doctor comes in after about half an hour, and we're just, longest half hour of our lives. Can't blame the doctor though. You know, no one anticipated that the baby would come this fast. Gets in and he's like, oh dang, you're going pretty fast. And once the doctor gets in, after about 5 minutes, the baby pops out. And everyone was like, this is your first child? We were like, yeah, very first child to give birth to. They're like, you've been here like only 4 hours. You know, if contractions start at 4, you've been in, 6-hour process. That is lightning fast for a first child. So that was crazy. I think one of the weirdest things during the birthing process for me was just that I lost all perception of time. So after we got to the hospital, it was about 6 o'clock, and our child was born right at 10 o'clock. So yeah, we were there for about 4 hours. It felt like maybe only half an hour to an hour to me. Like,
can you come over real fast?
Oh, sure. Hold on, I gotta help with the baby. Anyway, so yeah, our first child came along a lot faster than we thought. So that's kind of cool, I guess. I mean, at least my wife didn't need to go through 12 hours of painful labor. So that's something, I guess. I don't know. Doctors are kind of speculating if my wife was kind of a little bit in the preterm, the early phases of labor, whatever the technical term is. I'm too tired to remember. Anyway, yeah, so the doctors think that she was probably doing a little bit of labor here at home. Saying that contractions started at 4 and then we didn't even make it to the hospital until 6. Things probably progressed a lot faster than we thought, but even then, considering that it was from 4 to 10, 6 hours, that's still relatively short, saying that most first-time labors are like 12 hours-ish, sometimes greater than that. So, speedy delivery, I mean, sounds good to me. We have a baby either way. So, my thoughts about the birthing process. That was awesome to see, I will admit. Wasn't nearly as bloody as I thought it would be. So, guys are squeamish around blood. Yes, there is blood. But it's not like gushing out. There's not nearly as much as I think people say there is. There definitely is some, but it's not too bad. But again, this is just me. I can deal with blood perfectly fine. It was amazing to actually see the crowning, where the baby's head was starting to poke out a little bit. After a while, we could see, her hair slightly in the top of her skull. And eventually it just all kind of popped out. I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it. It kind of just squeezed out of there. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know. You're just going to have to see it for yourselves. I don't know how to describe it. It was definitely a beautiful experience, that's for sure. I can kind of get a better grasp on how baby's head can pop from between my wife's legs. But everything went really well, really good. And yeah, I loved it. It was a nice experience. And like I said, I did lose a little bit of perception of time, even though it was like 10 o'clock and I had been up that day since 6 o'clock. I didn't feel tired at all. I think kind of like my wife, we were just like so into it that we did not feel very tired at all. I didn't get to sleep until like 1 o'clock later that night, just because, after my wife gave birth and they moved us to a new hospital room, we started to do a few other things with the baby, like try to do some skin-to-skin contact, try to do the first feeding, and yeah, a little bit of back and forth motion there. I didn't get to sleep till about 1 o'clock, but I didn't feel tired until I was about ready to lay down and go to sleep. I was like so energized. I think I myself probably had a few rush of hormones. Definitely less than my wife, that's for sure. But I had my own experiences just tightened, on the intensity of the whole thing. That I did not feel fatigue. I didn't have any dinner that night, just because of everything that was going on. And so I completely did not feel any of that. I didn't recognize anything that was going on with me. I was just there helping my wife, and it all happened. And then when I finally got to take a time to think about myself, everything just caught up with me. I was like, okay, I can sit down and take a break. And then all the exhaustion, all the sleepiness just fell on top of me like a rock, and I fell asleep pretty fast. And fortunately, my mom and my mother-in-law were there to help through the first night, and I just slept. I felt kind of bad, but they knew I was exhausted, so they were happy to take over for me for a little bit, so that was good. About the hospital stay, guys, or any other support person that's going to be there with your wife or significant other or whoever else you're with that's giving birth, it's cold, okay? It's so cold in the hospital room. It's not even funny. Obviously, they've got a very nice hospital bed, and they got nice thick covers, and my wife, especially she's breastfeeding and she's topless, she's warm throughout the experience. She's not cold in that hospital room at all. Me, I'm freezing. It's so cold. And I had just like a little, I had a simple blanket to use. It wasn't like a great big, comforter or thick wool blanket for me to use. Slept on the couch. Wasn't anything glamorous, kind of small and cramped, but it was decent. And yeah, so guys, your wife is going to be super comfy during those few days while you're there at the hospital. You will not be. It's not a hotel. It's not like they're trying to go for max comfort there. You're not going to be, way too uncomfortable. I don't know what the proper way to describe it. It's not like they neglect you. You got a comfy couch. You got some blankets and some pillows that you can sleep with. But it's definitely not the comfort of your own home. I'll just say that. So if guys, when you go, just wear long pants. I wore jeans because I kind of had a heads up warning that it would be cold. I didn't realize how cold it would be, but I was told it'd be cold. So I wore just long jeans, something that I could be warm in. And even though it's still kind of hot where I live, I dressed warm. So I'm sure it was hot outside, but I dressed warm because it was friggin' cold inside. Bring an extra blanket, I would say. Bring an extra blanket. They had a few pillows there for me to use, so I don't think you need to worry about bringing a pillow. Maybe just in case, bring one, leave it in the car just in case. But overall, not too bad. I would recommend the extra blanket, though, because you're going to be cold. Maybe a jacket or a sweatshirt or something, because it's cold. If I haven't said enough, it's cold in there. Hospital food was okay, though. It wasn't too bad. Had some things catered. Her food was free. I had to pay for mine, but okay, whatever. Still good food. I was still just so involved with, how's the baby doing? How's my wife doing? That I ate much less than normal. I had just breakfast and just dinner, and that was about it. And I didn't have much else. I didn't even have much else to eat or drink. Now that I think about it, I'm feeling really thirsty right now, just as I'm able to relax here at home and everything's catching up with me. I was rather fatigued. I was definitely really tired. I ate like half a pizza, which I haven't done in a long time, on my own. I'm super thirsty, that's for sure. I can feel all the lack of water coming up, catching up with me. So those first 36 hours while we were at the hospital after the birth, I definitely, I forgot about myself, except for the time I was sleeping. And the time that I thought I was cold. Other than that, I wasn't hungry at all. I wasn't very thirsty. Eating was not important to me. It was kind of weird. Very weird how all of a sudden all my senses just shift somewhere else. You know, as I was sleeping, sure I was dead tired, but every time my baby made a small little cry or coo or something, I woke up to see if she was okay. And you know, still super dead tired, but you know, I hear it and I wake up and I'm like, oh, I need another 6 hours of sleep, but my baby's okay. And you know, my wife was going through that too. You know, she would sleep a little bit and wake up every time the child made a sound. And yeah, neither of us got too much sleep while we were at the hospital. But surprisingly, our bodies just naturally went into like this overdrive mode where we were able to just power through all the fatigue and whatnot. So that's kind of impressive. You know, I guess the body is kind of designed to do that, but I didn't realize how powerful that effect would be. So it was kind of cool to experience, I will say. So yeah, the hospital visit was okay. Went pretty good. Before we went home, the hospital staff, our nurses and doctors, looked things over, made sure things were okay, ran their tests, had us watch a few videos, you know, a few training videos like on how to do things like how to swaddle the baby, how to clean the baby, how to breastfeed the baby. We had a few lactation consultants come in actually because we had a hard time getting our child to latch and stay latched. So that was slightly concerning just because our baby wasn't eating as much as we think she needs to. We have some backup formula that the hospital gave us and that our mother-in-law bought, so we're doing good there. At least I think she's going to go buy us formula. She said she would. Yeah, we're waiting for her to come help later today. But yeah, so they kind of taught us a little bit with that. They had us sign some forms, do some paperwork, you know, all that stuff. I got to do the checkout process, which yay insurance, because I did not realize how expensive having a baby would be. I mean, I knew having kids would be expensive. I didn't think the hospital visit was that expensive. So yeah, guys, that's a shocker. Go research that. But I mean, what do I expect? And I mean, it's all worth it. And like I said, yay insurance. But yeah, so we had to do all that checkout stuff, and after it was like, okay, congratulations, here's your baby, go home. And of course, yeah, we're just like, are we going to be fine? Are we going to be able to do this? But we have the fortunate blessing of both my parents and my wife's parents being nearby, so they've been a lot of help. Both my mom and my mother-in-law, they've got lots of experience under their belt with all this, so they know what they're doing. They've helped us a lot. They've helped do some of the chores and some of the other things while we've slept, and it feels so good to sleep again. I've always been one that doesn't really care for sleep. I'll wake up at 6 in the morning every day, go to bed at 11:30 every night. 6.5 hours of sleep is my cup of tea. Except I don't drink tea, I drink milk. My cup of milk. I'm sorry, I'm being a dad, okay? I'm making all these dad jokes all the time. I've made so many eyes roll in the past 36 hours, it's not even funny. It is funny to me, though. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm losing track. Focus. So, having my mom and my mother-in-law over to help every now and again is really nice. Definitely, if you can get help, guys, just take it. You may think, oh, well, I didn't do that much hard work. My wife did all the labor. You're doing a lot too, guys, and you're going to need the rest. Trust me. I've been up and about. I was helping my wife. Anytime my wife needed something, I was moving around, grabbing stuff, helping her with things. I was helping pick up the baby, move the baby, change the baby, dress the baby, get the baby into position. Back here at home, I'm doing most of the chores. Waking up with my wife because I'm also worried about baby, so I wake up with her. So guys, you're doing a lot of work too. Don't think that you're going to just be like, oh yeah, I can just continue on as normal and not feel that fatigue. I didn't pop out this child from between my legs. You're doing a different kind of fatigue, dudes. So you will feel tired, that's for sure. So if someone's willing to offer you help, just accept it because you will appreciate it, trust me. Or you'll get tired and loopy like me. So, so we have a baby now. Yay! This pregnancy blog is officially over, and yeah, it feels great to be a dad. I've loved every second of it so far. I mean, sure, it gets frustrating sometimes when our child doesn't want to eat, or when she's crying and I don't know what's going on, but you know, I've loved it so far. I love being a dad, and I look forward to these next few weeks, months, and years. This is going to be great. Okay, so that wraps it up for this pregnancy blog. What I do want to do, just because obviously this isn't the end, it's not like, okay, yay, baby, it's over, and move on with your lives, people. Definitely my life is changing, and I'm still learning and going through a lot. And I still want to share this experience with you and the rest of the internet. Like I said from the beginning, I'm just doing this to share my experience and to help guys get an idea as to what they can expect. Maybe get a little bit of insight as to what I've gone through. Every pregnancy is different. Every experience is unique. You know, that goes the same for guys as well. So, you know, definitely just because I've gone through it doesn't mean that you'll have the same experience. But, you know, it's always good to have multiple points of view so you can sort of see what the average is or what you can expect. And who knows, if you have an experience similar to mine, you know, maybe you can see my videos and see your future self and what to expect. So anyway, I will transition. I'll end the pregnancy blog playlist, and I'll talk about my experience about raising my child. Probably for the next 3 months. Probably not too much longer. I mean, I can't do this forever, but because I mean, eventually I'll just go into the same monotonous. Oh, they're being a brat again. Something else broke. You know, I mean, obviously more joyful than that, but you know what I mean. Anyway, so yes, for the next 3 months, I will go ahead and continue these videos, just talking about my experience raising a new child, you know, what it's like for me, how I'm adjusting, things I'm learning, you know, all the cool dad tricks I'm picking up, and I'll continue to share that wisdom with you, internet. So once again, thank you for joining me for this pregnancy journey. It's been great. Absolutely peachy. I'm loving it. I would recommend being a dad to anyone. I love it. It's great. Anyway, thank you, internet, for joining me. I will continue to follow your comments or talk with you people either in person or over the internet. But in the meantime, stay awesome. And I think I should join my baby for a nap. Just maybe. And I can come up with my next few dad jokes to use on her in the next few years. Yeah, I'll go dream about that. That sounds like a plan. There's all sorts of good ones to pull on my daughter, you know. Think of the times when she's dating too. Oh, that's going to be a blast.